Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I apologize for the delay. This summer has been very, very busy, including back-to-back summer camp weeks and lessons, dealing with some health stuff with my own horses and myself. So, podcast had to take a little bit of the back burner, but we're back. We're back in action, and I have an exciting episode that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. This week is a solo episode where I'm here to talk about tips and tricks of the trade for equestrian entrepreneurs like myself. Now, a little disclaimer is that I am not a horse trader, so I do not buy and sell horses. So the things that I will be talking about business-wise do not deal with that realm. However, if that's your thing, but you're also doing lessons and clinics, I think some of the stuff will be useful and resonate with you as well. So stick around, and I'm going to be telling some stories and some things that I've learned in my over a decade of running my own business with horses. So, just a little bit about me. I have a business where I'm using my horses, kind of like my family. They are my babies, and my horses and myself historically have been traveling, doing performances, and then also doing summer camps and clinics and lessons. Now that we are not really performing, as we are getting older, myself included, I'm tired. Sometimes when I think about those old contracts I used to do, 3 shows a day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks at a time, I'm not interested. I'm tired. I'm cool with letting someone else take the limelight and teaching them how to be in the limelight. That is the fun part for me now. And also my horses are getting older, but we used to travel. And I used to not only teach other people with their horses and also do some training horses. Most of it has been working with my animals, which I really love doing because they are like my children. So what a better way to get paid and spend the day than working and being alongside your own animals, like your coworkers, and showing people awesome things. Where to start? I don't even know. Okay, I have a little list. Let's just go through that list, and as stories pop up, I will be sharing those thoughts and feelings. But first, right into the nitty-gritty. If you are a desire, like wanting to be, you desire to be a professional in the equine industry, whether you're teaching lessons, whether you're training horses, teaching clinics, you're performing, or you just are interested in aspiring to where doors might take you, the first thing I think you should do is get insurance. Horses are dangerous. Make sure you have health insurance because you never know what can happen. And especially being on the road, I have been to emergency rooms in different cities in different states. Funny enough, a lot of the injuries that tend to happen are not in the big basis of what you're doing. So it's not like the big trick that might get you hurt. It's the silly things here and there. So when I went to the ER, it's because I got bit by somebody's dog at a clinic. Um, People that I know who have gotten sued, it's not from a big fall off a horse. They got sued because a student fell off the mounting block. So it's knowing that it's those little times in between where things might happen. So having health insurance for yourself, you can have coverage for your animals. That is a world that I'm stepping into, even at my horses in a semi-retired kind of retirement age. I am looking into insurance policies for them to cover like colic or injury since they're older, probably not pre-existing conditions, but a friend of mine just pointed out that the ASPCA has policies for dogs, cats, and horses. So I'm super interested in that. It's been kind of an old idea that the horse needs to be expensive in order for them to be insured. Yes, that would be like for mortality, but It doesn't matter if it's a $200 backyardigan horse or it's a, $200,000 Grand Prix horse. Those stitches are going to cost the same. So thinking about that, not necessarily for mortality, but for injury so that you're ready. The people I've known in my life who have had it and used and received a reimbursement for injury, they rant and rave about it. So having insurance on your animals, and of course having liability insurance for anyone doing any equestrian activities under your watch. There are some instructors that I've had work underneath me in the past, so I've added them as additionally insured. Of course, having waivers. I have online waivers from a company called Smart Waiver. Back in the day when I was traveling, I used to send the barn owner waivers. They would have to print them, or I would be out in my trailer picking up like Wi-Fi from somewhere so I could print a bunch of waivers, and then I'd have all these printed waivers, and that costs, paper and ink is not cheap, and then where to file them. Because once someone signs your waiver, you want to keep that on file in case anything happens. Maybe someone has been riding with you for 3 years. They signed your waiver in 2020 and something happened this year in 2024. You need to make sure that you can pull out that waiver. So that's why I like to do mine online. Because plenty and majority of the time, people get sent their waiver prior to their event and 80% will take care of it. And then there's another 10 to 20% who arrive the day of and go, oh, I didn't sign your waiver. So it's right there on your smartphone. So there's no excuse. They can get it done right there before your eyes, before they go, stepping foot in the arena or in a stall. So I love my online waiver. It's smart to have all of that stuff. And then the other thing I want to talk about is bookkeeping. So I work for myself and my horses work for me as well. Everything that is for them, that is required for my business, so their feed, their health care, those are all write-offs. Once upon a time, you guys know that I was working in a lot of circuses. I'm not going to name names, but I want to tell this story because this story was a huge motivator for me in the way that I like to do my organization with my business stuff. Because, horse people getting into business aren't business people getting into horses. They're horse people getting into business. Our heart is in the arena, in the stall, in the pasture, in the barn, not really behind the desk. So it can be challenging to stay on top of your stuff. Once upon a time, I was working a show and the show owner got audited and they whipped out a shoebox full of receipts and just started throwing receipts through the air. And I looked at that situation. I said, I never want to be in that situation ever. So I take time every month to print out my Venmo receipts, PayPal receipts, anything I spent on Amazon, and I have some stuff for the horses that I have to order through a pharmacy. I print all that and then I keep it in a binder, and I have a front page for every month. I have, the files in the binder, the tabs that go month by month, and then I can open that tab and I can see what I spent on the necessities for my business. I file my receipts for my truck, my trailer, especially when I was on the road doing that stuff. Insurance, business, so my phone bill, my MailChimp bill, my Squarespace bill, all those things still fall under that category. And then I have another section of my income. So I keep my checks and I paste them in a page, and all my receipts from Venmo that people may pay for clinics or deposits or lessons. So then I have a itemized list of my expenses and my income, and it looks the same every month. So then when it's tax time at the end of the year, I can just go through that and add up some numbers, and it'll take less than a half an hour. My taxes are on time. I never have to file late. It's just nice to get it done. And then if anyone has any questions, I have this handy dandy binder with everything in it. It's nice to stay on top of it because sometimes we forget. We forget that you bought the hay in cash and that you have to ask for a receipt or write a receipt, or print some text messages that have an agreement with a receipt. So if you stay fresh and on top of it, you won't have to go back months later and forget things that you may have earned or may have spent money on. Now, I know I'm an elder millennial, so I'm a little in the caveman era. There's QuickBooks. I like my physical hard copy because that binder goes with me everywhere I go. So when I was hauling around before the months, in the very front of my binder, I had all the additional things that I needed, including my Coggins test, my health certificate, my proof of insurance, my proof of having a business. I got that little Minnesota seal that shows that I am indeed a business. Um, my vaccines. So if I go into a facility, they can see that my horses were up to date with their vaccines and their batch number and what they received and when they received it. So I had that nice, need this now when I travel stack in front of all those months. And I would keep contracts in there too. So the page that had the agreed upon amount and dates, and then their signed copy would go with their deposit, and that would go into my binder as well. So then if I was at an event, and I used to have some spring seasons where I was going weekend after weekend, clinic after clinic. I think back in 2018 in the summer, I had a week. I remember this because it only happened once, because I don't think I could do this to myself or my horses like we used to. But I had a week where I was going 10 days straight with lessons and clinics at 4 different facilities. Financially, it was a good week. I was very burnt out. I was very tired. But, you know, during that week, I could just go to that binder and they were right there filed in order. So you don't have to do what I do, but being organized is so helpful. So helpful, especially when you have seasons like I do, where one season might be booking season and might be slower, and you can prep all that paperwork so that when it's summertime and it's super busy, you're organized, you're just there to go, 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 go. And you don't have to plug in those formulas as you go. You have already done that work. And then at the end of the year, all you have to do is total it all up. So being organized is super, super helpful. All right, I have 2 major bullet points that I want to talk about. But first, let me also remind you that part of my business was traveling. So I have a whole podcast episode about tips for hauling horses. And that's about having AAA, stopping at horse motels, using products like GastroGuard before you travel, using alfalfa, how to hydrate your horses while traveling. That also all falls in this category of being an equestrian entrepreneur if you're kind of in the same realm of that I'm in. So consider checking out that episode as well, so I don't have to get into details in this episode about what we covered there. Next major thing on the list is your horses come first. Now, if this is a time for you to tune out, go ahead and tune out, because those of you who know me know that I have an activism stance on a lot of things that I try not to get into all the time, but when it comes to animal, equestrian, horse welfare, I do have some hard opinions that I will not compromise. And that is your horse coming first. You will, even if you lose on a major contract, you will always be rewarded in the long run for putting your animals first. Let's talk about that. So first of all, we're all here because of horses. And it's 2024, we just had the Paris Olympics. There is a trending, which I think is a good thing, kind of revolution of people questioning who's putting the sport before the horse. Because sport is not necessary. None of this that we do is necessary. It is not necessary to race horses. It is not necessary to be in the dressage in the Olympics. It's not necessary to trick ride or teach trick ride or be going to circuses, or dinner theaters, or what have you. So if we're going to do this, all these unnecessary things, it's important that we do it correctly or we shouldn't do it at all. Let's get into it and let me tell you some personal stories. So, when I traveled with my horses, I thought it was such a win-win. I get to keep eyes on them, be their primary caretaker, we get to work together, and lessons and clinics were a win-win-win because I got to share awesome things with awesome people. My horses got to work with me, they got exercise, they got attention, and then I was getting paid all at once until they started aging faster than I am. And now traveling to clinics is not as easy as it used to be. So my horse, my oldest horse, you guys might know and love him, Fez. As he got older, at one point he was sick where he had to be in a quarantine stall, and there he developed the gastric ulcers. Anyone who, and I'm not a vet, I'm just telling you, speaking of experience, you can research ulcers or talk to your vet about this, but I know a lot of people, a lot of my peers have also dealt with ulcers in their horses, in their world, in their realm, and what they do. So this might not be a foreign topic for everybody, but basically, once they get them, you have to try to maintain them and prevent them. They don't really go away. It's not like a one-time thing. So from that point on, every time we traveled, he was getting preventative omeprazole, and it seemed to work fairly well. And it worked until it didn't. So last year, after a summer of being at the camp and not moving, I was getting ready to go to a clinic. And the night before the clinic, the night before I was going to leave for the clinic, I should say, I was leaving a couple days early to give him time to settle in. As my horses got older, I kind of I built more time into my routes to make sure that they had no pressure to settle in to a barn or an arena. But I was getting ready to leave, and just by watching that trailer get packed, he stressed himself out and had a gas colic the night before we were supposed to leave. So the next morning I called the facility and I canceled my clinic. Um, it was hard. You don't want to break contracts, but of course my horse has to come first. At that point, I was afraid of losing him, and it was not a half hour down the road, an hour down the road. It was jumping a couple states. So it was like a 6-hour haul that I was about to have him do, and I wasn't going to do that. I gave him preventative omeprazole leading up to it because I knew he might get stressed. And honestly, I have no way to confirm this, but I think even he associates the tube of the paste with having to travel. So if we're doing this again, which we will have a move at some point, I'm going to do it a little differently, and try to get him comfortable in the trailer again and take him to fun places. But anyways, back to what had happened last season, was that I called and I went to cancel. Obviously, we were both trying to brainstorm different ways to do this. Just bring some of the horses. That wasn't going to work. They have been together, traveling together for 10 years, and we're used to going to camps and circuses. So sometimes being the only horses at a facility and not separated. So that would have been more stressful and would not have helped the situation. And I did not want to leave my had just colicked horse with my partner, who's not the most experienced horse person. It just wasn't worth it. And I got asked a question by the facility owner, and the question was, what do I tell people? Aren't you worried about your reputation? And immediately my answer was, tell them the truth. I'm a horse person. They're horse people. Nobody's going to argue that I canceled a clinic because my horse colicked the night before I was supposed to leave. And it was a gas colic, not an impaction colic. Those who have gone, deep into horse ownership have probably experienced colic at some point and know that there's a bunch of different types of colics. An impaction colic, where there's a blockage. There's an old wives' tale or theory of throw them on the trailer because the trailer might make a horse nervous and might help them pass manure. Those who are experienced with colic know that the intestines are very long and skinny, and you can have an impaction here, and you can be passing manure back here. So just because you see manure in the stall doesn't mean that you're in the clear. But if it's a gas colic that might have, there's not a blockage, not an impaction, it's a buildup of gas, probably from ulcers. Putting him on a trailer is not going to help pass manure along. In fact, it's going to feed that stress and potentially make it worse. So know your horses, talk to your vets, use your own judgment, and be careful what people say or what they suggest, especially when there's all to like, you know, different interests in mind, especially financially. Lo and behold, this person was very understanding as a horse person themselves. And after they called the clients to cancel, nobody argued. In fact, I received messages that's, contained paragraphs of, oh, we're so sorry, we missed you, but we are so glad you put your horse first, and we completely understand, and we're glad he's not traveling right now, and thoughts and prayers to you, happy healing, you do what you got to do. So any right-minded horse person who puts the horse before the sport is going to understand when you put your horses first. That's why I always stopped at horse motels trying to get them off the trailer. And then if their needs started to say, hey, we can't trailer as much anymore, then I altered my business and I started to dial that back. For some people, that might look like, retiring horses and acquiring younger ones. For me, it looks like we change just what we do to fit our needs best, because as horses get older, they have more needs. I'm committed to these guys. We're sticking through it. So if that means we can't travel to people and people have to travel to us, that's fine. I get people from all over the country, even out of country, coming to the summer camps. So I'm happy to adjust. You can do what you want. Life on the road. Some people love it. So if that means you want to get younger horses and keep going, keep going. More power to you. I'm also tired of driving. So like I'm fine with it. I got rid of my really big trailer, my 40-foot beautiful trailer, and I miss it, but I don't miss that loan and that loan payment. So I'm at where I'm at. I'm just sharing my stories with you guys. Uh, as far as equestrian welfare, another story, um, and another reason you want to keep your name clear of making sure you always put your horses first is that that's what people are starting to look for. I just recently mentioned the revolution of putting the horse before the sport. And there are things, even little things in my little world, in my little bubble of my everyday life that I see. So when I have adult camps, adults will come to me from all over North America, and some of them have mentioned that they were hesitant to sign up because they were concerned about the care of the horse and the horse usage, only to find out that they were so relieved and so happy with the way I kept things 30 minutes and under for the horses and then rotated. So if you've not taken my camps, let me give you an example. Summer camp runs from 9 to 3. For the first half an hour, we're doing warm-ups, working off the barrel, learning how to fall. That's the first thing we learn at camp is how to fall. Safety and clinic, safety first. And then we get into our sections. I'll take a group, my assistant takes a group. They are doing an hour on the barrel. And then let's say I have a group of 5 for the next hour. In that hour with a group of 5, we are getting the horses, grooming and tacking the horses, and we are taking turns doing the tricks we just learned on the barrel. And so those horses are saddled and ridden for 20 to 30 minutes. And then in the next hour, I rotate. So if it was Rosenbach, that horse, probably my horse Remy, he's done. And then I go grab the next one for trick riding. And so they are not standing out in the sun, saddled all day. I have things that I have mentioned, like the research I have seen about horses' backs going numb after 20 to 30 minutes of being ridden. And now I'm going to use that information and I'm going to let it evolve my values, and I'm going to let my business evolve to be able to maintain the utmost health and welfare for my animals. And I get applauded for that all the time. Now, back in the day when I was a kid and, capitalism was at its high, we went, dollar for dollar, minute for minute. And people said, okay, I'm buying my daughter an hour lesson. She better be on that horse for an hour. That's canceled. That's out of here. Get out of here. If you're still thinking like that, we want to, especially in my business, work smarter, not harder. So during my private lessons, if you have an hour with me, we are working on the barrel and we are going through technique in a place where it's not intimidating, it's safer. I can manipulate the person into the tricks if I need to. And then we get the horse, and we don't waste the horse's time, his back, his patience while we're learning tricks. We learned the tricks on the barrel, and now we're putting them into action. We're in, we're out, we're done, and we get more done that way. And I'm staying within my value for using the horse, within my value system for using my horse, and I'm practicing what I preach. I had someone recently come to me during a summer camp. So where I work for summer camps, we have horse summer camps, we have circus summer camps, and sometimes we have horse circus summer camps, but most of the time we're running 2 camps at once. So a parent came over from the circus summer camp and said, oh, I see you do horses. I've heard good things. Let me ask you, how long do people ride when they are in your lessons? And I told her, I said, they are doing an hour lesson. They are working with a horse for 30 minutes, riding for about 20. And I told her why. And she said, that's great because my daughter broke her arm. She was taking an hour-long lesson where the horse had just been used back to back in an hour-long lesson. Through pain, tiredness, frustration, bucked off my daughter. Now she has a broken arm. We don't want to find, we don't want to be in a program where these horses are being used back to back. So there's a prime example of like using discernment in where you put your energy. Money is energy. And thinking that in those terms has been an eye-opening journey for me about where am I going to put my energy? What companies, what processes do I want to support? I don't want to support puppy mills. I'm going to buy from a rescue. And it's the same thing when you're purchasing lessons, purchasing camps, purchasing clothes, all of that stuff. So if you're buying lessons, she didn't want to put her energy into a business where the horses are getting used back to back just so that she could squeeze every minute for every dollar. And so have your values, stand in them, and you will be rewarded, and you will see how the revolutionary evolution is happening in the industry, which is what we need because I'm 2 feet already. I'm facing backwards out the door of the equestrian industry with just my butt hanging out because I'm over it. But luckily, there are people who feel the same way and don't want to completely drop the horse world. And so we're finding our nooks and crannies. So it's super important to put your horse first, stand behind it because the right people will find you and you will still be rewarded for your efforts and what you stand for makes a difference. The energy that you put out and the energy of being rewarded financially comes back to you. So always, have your values, put the horse first. Therefore, energy, be careful who you partner with. If you're doing clinics and then you stop at a barn where the horses are skin and bones, you put your name on that. You associated with them. They say never burn a bridge. There are some bridges you shouldn't burn. I started at a dinner theater in 2011 that I revisited and worked at again in 2022. It felt like a homecoming to me. That was a bridge I didn't burn. There are some bridges that I'm going to pour gasoline on. Don't put my name with that name. I do not associate with their practices, with what they do. Even if I did, learning and being honest about what you know and why you've changed your ways and why you will no longer associate will only make you seem stronger and wiser, be accountable, have humility, and be progressive. There are bridges that you can set fire on, it's okay. And you're going to know in your gut exactly why you're going to keep your business and your name away from this business and their name. So now let's talk about the most important item on the list, contracts. Contracts. You gotta have a contract for everything and everyone. So, being a horse girl in the horse world, a lot of my friends are also my clients. They're clients first. They can be friends outside of work, but everyone should be treated the same with a contract. And if they can't respect your boundary of keeping business business during business hours, then you might want to reconsider your working friendship relationship with them. I've also ended work relationships because I knew that if it were to continue the way it was continuing, it would have ruined my friendship with that person. And I had to make a choice. So you are constantly faced with choices, especially in this industry where our friends are our clients. But if you have a contract for everything, then everything's written right there. All of the obligations, all of the responsibilities. And when they sign it, they are saying that, yes, I have read through this and I agree with this, and I will uphold my half of this working relationship. So have a contract. When I do clinics, when I do performances, I hand my clients a contract. And I've learned the hard way about contracts many times the good way, majority of the times the good way, sometimes the hard way. Read your contracts. I too have signed contracts that I didn't really read. Lo and behold, it didn't make sense and it was full of misspellings, and great, I was legally bound to them. Learned the hard way. Had some help of some lawyers get me through it. Don't sign anything until you strike out and underline every single question you may have. You should have a full understanding of what you're getting into front to back. The same goes for me giving contracts to clients for clinics. Now, I'm in my 30s. I started doing this in my 20s. I have dealt with people twice my age who have been in the industry longer than I've been alive, and I can't expect them to read my contracts. And it's not my responsibility to make sure that they read it. We are adults, we are professionals. I will present, first of all, I have a contract. I have a contract for clinics where I have a small fine print clause where I can adjust the location, the date, the amount of hours, and the price, and everything is the same. Otherwise, where I have a section about advertising, I have a section about the host agreement, I have a section about facilities being safe, I have a section about merchandise and waivers and whatnot, so that my responsibilities are listed out and then the host responsibilities are listed out. So let me tell you really quick how my clinics ran for over 10 years. I would go around the country doing clinics. And your business may or may not look like this, but just go ahead and listen to the story to get an example of, things that might relate to you in your life, in your business. But I would take my horses and I would use my resume of all the performances I've done, meaning as a professional, I'm paid to do XYZ. I have been paid to trick ride. I trick ride so well that people want to pay to see me do it. Rosenbach riding, Roman riding, liberty work, and jousting. Those are all things that I've been paid to do. Also, horse training and riding lessons. So I would create clinics using my horses and my equipment where people can get a circus experience. They could try Roman riding, they could try vaulting, they could try trick riding, and they can understand the principles of groundwork and liberty in a safe place with experienced horses so that they can see what they like, try it on for size without having to get on green horses, without having to invest in equipment, etc., and not even having to travel with me when I travel to them. So when I went into facilities, I've done these clinics in Salt Lake City, Utah. I've done these camps in, outside of New York City. So I make agreements with the host that I will come and I will teach for X amount of hours for X amount of dollars every time. Provide the horses, provide the equipment, provide the education, provide a safe experience. They are agreeing to have the facility, do the advertising because I don't know their area, and handle the registration. I'm like a band that performs at a bar. I'm going to perform from this time to this time for this amount of dollars. You, as the bar owner, need to advertise for the band, set good deals on drinks so that you can cover my costs, and then you can make some money and have some success. And so I can't have a risk. If I'm taking my horses down the road, I need to know how much I'm getting to cover all my costs. The risk is for them because guess what? This is in their backyard. They have to jump on the computer and they have to make some phone calls and emails. Therefore, what they put in is what they get out. So if they put in a lot of time and energy into advertising, they will make as much as I'm making. If they don't, that's on them. That can't be on me. So if somebody doesn't want to advertise and doesn't want to work on the clinic, then it can't come out of my paycheck because I'm filling my half of the duty. I'm showing up with the horses and the equipment and I'm teaching for X amount of hours. Doesn't matter if I'm teaching for X amount of hours for a full clinic, 12 people, or I'm teaching for 4 people. They're still going to get the same hours, the same quality of teaching from me. So therefore the risk cannot come to me. I have a lot of people who I relate to them. They don't hold up their half of the deal. This rarely happens, but it does happen. And then they go, oh, well, I was just trying to have something fun for my kids. That's great. That's great. I'm glad you're doing this so you can have something fun for your kids. But just because it's a fun activity for you doesn't mean it's not how I make a living. So it can't be just free fun money for me. These horses have to eat. I have to eat. So therefore, you have a contract so that everything's written there and everybody knows they're part of the deal. And I like to be openly helpful because I will send out information packets with information, sample formats, prices, and frequently asked questions before the contract even goes out. And I will tell my clients, just take your time, sample your barn, sample your culture, your population, and if you get majority of interest, get majority of interest before you come to me for a contract. I'm trying to help them set themselves up for success so that they don't end up owing me at the end of the weekend. It rarely happens, but it's happened. I have a story for you. So then I give them time and I'll even tell them, hey, if someone starts pressuring me for the weekend that you want to book, I'll tell you first. So then we can turn the heat up underneath you to make a decision here. But if you need time to make sure that you can financially make it, have time. So then the contract, they pick a weekend, they have a lot of people that say they're going to do it. So now they're going to lock in the date with me. So now here comes the contract where I have everything written out. And then I say in the email, attached, please find your contract. Please read it over. Pay attention to the pricing in the small print. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns before you sign it. cheers, kind regards. So I'm giving them an opportunity to make sure everything makes sense to them. But if they go move forward and sign it, they signed it. They're telling me that they are understanding their half of the deal and what they owe. So once it's signed, it's done. So now they can move forward with what they're doing for our deal, and I can move forward with my preparations for the deal. Majority of the time, it works out great. It works out great, and it's been set up for success. I come in, I do the job, I make what I'm expected to make. I'm welcomed. Everyone's excited about this opportunity. They do a good job with the advertising. I share what they make. They make out well after the weekend. Everybody's happy. I've gone to facilities sometimes 3 times in one season just because it's been working out so well. Rare occasion do I get the 1 or 2 people who have all the resources in front of them, choose not to potentially ask questions or read through it properly, sign something before understanding their role. And here's what I have run into. And these are my tips for anyone in a situation like I was in, especially if you're female, especially if you're potentially minority, if you're younger, because people don't want to take you as seriously. And so the only one who can decide that they're going to be taken seriously is you, by taking yourself seriously. And then you can put up some boundaries and stand firm in what you do and what you believe in and what you've put out and what you've said, and hold people accountable for what they said they would be held accountable for. So you know how the clinics work now. Let me give you guys some examples. So I have a clause in there that says, let's talk about cancellation. If you have to cancel, make sure you do it within this amount of time. You don't get your deposit back, we'll reschedule to a different date. If you cancel in less than a week, I don't get enough time to fill that time. So a portion of what is owed has to be paid, especially any prepaid travels. So I've been out of country receiving text messages going, hey, so I only filled 1 day of the clinic for next weekend. What do we do? And I go, well, you should have told me earlier, because now we have less than a week. So you'll have to either owe me and I love this. If you refer back to the clinic, I mean not the clinic, if you refer back to the contract, page this, paragraph this states this. Okay. So know your contract. Know your contract, because people are going to ask questions and you need to be the encyclopedia and the oral communication of what's written. So then you can try to work with people, but you need to stand firm in what they had in front of them to read and ask questions before they signed it. So then you go, okay, well, here's your options. You can cancel that day now and forfeit this much of the cost. You can what I would suggest is try to give deals to people, refer a friend, sign up for a second day for a discount. At this point, you might as well try to push it. But I cannot take a cut. We have this agreed amount for this agreed days. If you want to gift it to people, just know that I'm signed in to teach for this amount of hours on this day, and it doesn't matter if it's for 10 people or if it's for 2. But now that we're locked in and it's not going as you planned, we need to get creative. And you can work with people, but you are not the one to compromise, because you understood and signed up. You don't get to compromise because people didn't understand or take seriously their part of the deal. That they are, let me remind you that they already signed. So they already agreed to everything. So why should you, in the case of me, historically, the one who has horses to feed and could have filled that with a different clinic from somebody who would have taken the advertising more seriously, why should I have to compromise my income because you didn't do your half of the deal. No, that's why we have contracts. So this is a fun story. I had somebody sign up for a clinic right away. She's older than me. She's been running a business. She's doing lessons. She's got a huge boarding facility. She's going to shows. She gets it. She knows what world she's in. You're entering, I've been in the world for 10 years, but I'm entering a world where she's been in for a while, right? I don't know how she did clinics or contracts in the past, but I don't do handshake deals. We have a contract. She has had the opportunity to ask questions. She signs. We move forward. She doesn't have to do anything. She has so many people in her barn ready and willing to sign up for the clinic that with very minimal effort, she made so much money and she had such a successful weekend. My classes were even sometimes beyond full. Know that. In my clinic, I also have a an age limit on minimum because sometimes the little kids can't reach my stirrups. I have a weight limit. My horses. It's the nature of what we do. So sorry. Um, I have a person limit. I can teach 6 people in a group and get a fair amount of turns. I can't teach 10. We run out of time and people are sitting around. They don't get enough turns. So you have to have a cutoff of what seems like people are going to get their money's worth because you have to also give a valuable experience that people would want to recommend. You don't want to go, oh my gosh, I was one rider out of 20, so I only got on the horse for like 30 seconds. Okay. So she already had a couple people over my limit, which is a breach of the contract, but I let it slide. And it was a great weekend. So she wants to, of course, do it again. Right away, picks the weekend. It was kind of like a holiday weekend, but that's what she picked because she also picked late. So I had few pickings left. It's kind of like going to a concert and trying to, people bought those concert tickets 8 months ago, but you want to go the week before. Well, what's going to be left? Probably not much that you're going to be happy with. So she decides not to wait to just pick what's left and then doesn't advertise. In my contracts, I say that I will share whatever people make. So if they make flyers, I will share them. I will share them on my email or share them on my social media pages, but I'm not going to take time out of my schedule to make the advertising. That's their job. So she doesn't make a flyer. She doesn't make anything. She makes a Facebook event. And I said, like, okay, that can only be shared on Facebook though. Maybe you might want to have something else that I can share in an email and reach more people. But that's on her. That's fine. If she doesn't want to do it that way, that she doesn't have to. So then less than a week out, I get an email that's like, hey, we're not really filling. It's kind of a holiday weekend and I didn't think about this event going on and this event going on. What do I do? So darn, I wish you would have told me earlier because now we're less than a week away from the event. So we're limited on what we can do because I'm limited on what I can fill my time with. Here are your options. I think, you can cancel, you can forfeit this cost, you could not get your deposit back, or you could try to do some last minute deals. By the way, you haven't sent me anything I could send out. Facebook event is only good on Facebook. You might want to consider making something else, whatever. So I gave her options and she had selected to try to move forward. And then I received an email later that said, oh, I think we're there. I think my costs are covered. Great. And I have had clients in the past who have had awesome sellouts and made a lot of money. The next year, bad year, economically, whatever, and said, oh, well, like we basically broke even. So the mega profit we made last time kind of breaks even for breaking even this time. It's still worth having you come out, love having you, loving the content you're producing, whatever. So it happens. There's always a risk, right? And if you don't want to risk, then you don't host a clinic. But great risks can come with great rewards. So I show up to the clinic. I even pushed pretty hard to get someone to sign up for the PM session, and they did. So even last minute, I was trying to help push and advertise for them. But I did what I said I would do. I showed up with my horses, my equipment, and I taught for 8 hours. Even if it were half full classes, I filled the time. I gave my energy to the people. I did what I said I was going to do. She even let some workers do it for free. So that's not on me. You want to not charge them? That's on you. That's fine. That doesn't come out of my wallet though. Those are your workers. That comes out of your wallet. So then we had even talked prior to what the amount owed would be, and it's right there in the contract. The deposit is paid, take out the deposit. This is what's left over. So then at the end of a long weekend, we sit down together and she writes down no one's ever done this to me before. She writes down everybody who's in the clinic and what they paid, and then the total for the clinic. And she goes, okay, this is what I made. And it even had the people in there with zeros because she let them join for free. And she goes, here's what we made. So what do I owe you? I was like, you owe me. I'm just going to make up numbers. Let's say it said $1,700. You owe me $2,400. What? How? Because that's in the contract. That's what we agreed upon. But how if I didn't fill the clinic? Well, that was your risk. Had you filled the clinic, had you done research, taken survey before picking the weekend, or picked a different weekend earlier, and done more advertising, you may have had plenty of leftover to pay me the $2,400, and then the rest would have been for you. But I'm sorry that you only had half a full clinic, but I came, I did what I needed to do. You owe me $2,400. But this is, how am I supposed to pay you this this is all only what I made? You could take it out of your profits from the last one that was super successful, and you can call it a wash. But I'm really sorry, but this is what you owe me. And let me tell you that in that moment, I was scared. I was super scared. I don't know about you guys, but like, millennial here, I was raised to never say no, to be very polite. So this was me having to be firm in my boundaries because I was clear from the second we started communication about what was expected of me, all the way through fulfilling what was expected of me to the end, and now receiving the payment for what I had done. And it was a scary moment, especially for a young girl talking to someone older than them in the industry who should have known better, or should have researched better, or should have read better. But I can't do that for them. So then my little heart's fluttering, and I'm like, no, we can pull the contract out right now. This is what you owe me. I'm really sorry. But you could have mentioned something earlier. We could have canceled and rescheduled earlier, but here we are. I've done the work. That's the risk you take. And I got paid. And she was nice to me because that was her mistake. That was on her. That was her poor business decision, her impulsivity. And, you know, she was nice to me because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And we're friends, and I showed up at that barn again to teach a lesson. She has not hosted a clinic since, but if I were in that situation, I'd be like, I don't know about these clinics. Like, oh, I got to really put more time and energy and effort into it before I take this risk. Okay. I didn't take it personally either. I'm like, maybe you know, this wasn't a great idea for this time of the year. I don't know. But it just goes to show you that you can try to set up everything right, and you're doing that to protect yourself. You can't control other people. You can't read the contract to them. You can provide all the information, but if I had to take time reading the contract to people, I'd have to charge for my time. People are adults. Just make sure that your paper trail is clear. That way you're a brick wall, right? Like when people go, oh, wait, but you said this. I go, nope, I said this. Nope, I said this. Nope, it's right here in the contract. It's this. See the one you signed? Yep, it's all right there. So make sure that everything is there. and then you can't go wrong. You just got to be a brave girl or boy or non-binary pal, to be firm in what you've produced and how you've communicated that. And it's scary, but it was like I learned, and you know, it felt good though. Like I didn't want that situation for that person, but it felt good to know that like I swept my trail and I'm here, and no, the answer is no. Like it's not going to come out of my check and my time and money because and not yours. That's your mistake. That's your cost. I'm so sorry. And you can have empathy for them, but you can't be compromised. Another quick story about a contract. I had someone in the entertainment industry who I had worked with before, who paid me, who was good for it. They were good to their horses. It was a good time. Call me for another gig. And, I priced everything out, the fuel, the horse motels, the equipment I had to purchase, the girls I had to pay, the horses I had to feed, and we agreed upon a price. I sent a contract and I never received my contract back. This was young 20s, Veronica. It was a little red flag, but I'm like, I've worked with this person before, and my friends work for this person, like they're good for it, right? When this gig had my ass and my horses driving across the country to get there, like no small task. Um, and I did the thing. It was not pretty. The horses were nervous about certain aspects, but so were theirs. Their horses were nervous about certain things. I watched a bridle get thrown off from one of their horses, rider get rider get tossed. I even offered them one of my horses to use in lieu of one of their own horses. And we tried it, but last minute they're like, "Ah, we're going to stick with the devil we know, not the one we don't." But horses are horses, okay? Like we're all in understanding here. I've had so many amazing performances and a couple performances where horses were being horses, and horse people understand that. But the thing was is that I had email and text message chain of pricing, things that I was going to offer, tricks, riders, amount of horses, and those things are recorded trails. So then after the show was completed, they got paid, they got hired back the next year. So it couldn't have been that terrible if they wanted them back the next year. I waited for my payment and I was like, where is this? Because, I got some horses and some girls to get home. And then suddenly some shady characteristics came out where I got an email going, you know what? I thought about it and I didn't like that. I didn't think it was professional. I didn't like your people. I didn't like your horses. And I go, excuse me, then why did we shake hands and say, good job, hope to do it again soon? But I'm like, this is why they didn't sign my contract, because they wanted to potentially snake out of it at any excuse, any chance they could. I'm a young girl in the industry, so that's slimy and gross. And what do I have to do to protect myself? I got to do some research. Until I'm very grateful that I got some friends. I have friends, especially lawyers, who are like, you see all these text messages you have saved? You did all these things that you said you were going to do. Whether it was pretty or not, you delivered. This is a legally binding document. And so therefore, I had to educate someone like twice my age who's been in the industry twice as long to be like, hey, yo, you didn't sign my contract, but really, here it is. Here's our agreement. Here's you agreeing to all the things I said I would do. Here's a video of the performance. So here's me doing all the things I said I would do. Therefore, you owe me this much money. And I didn't get it all, but I got some of it back. And now I never blew this person up in the industry because I'll let karma do the thing. But it's known. It's known. It's known by their own employees. They can do whatever they want with the information, but just know that people might seem your friend and people are out for themselves. And as long as you know what you've done and you have the backing to be able to, the emails I wrote back were so nice. It was like, I'm sorry you feel this way. I agree that it could have been a better performance, but we can always hope for a better one next time. You don't have to even work with me next time, but you do need to owe me for what I did do, especially when you got hired back. So it wasn't about producing something you didn't feel it was quality. This was just you. This was just you deciding that you did not want to pay me. Yeah, so that's learn the hard way. That's awesome. It's super fun. But again, it felt really strong and empowering. Little old me shaking in my little boots, going, hey, well, I did all these things, and you might not have signed my contract, but we have a written agreement. There's nothing they can do but go, oh shit, she's right. Oh shit, she's right. So, contracts. Don't leave the facility until that contract's signed. And also, lessons. I do something as simple as giving weekly lessons to people that people will be in the parking lot for an hour, go home, have dinner, do the thing, and still not want to pay me. And I have to go back and contact them and remind them, hey, and they're my friends too. Like, you know, there it's no bad feelings, but you have to get paid for the things you do. Hey, just a reminder, payment is due at time of the service, because where else do people get a service or a thing that they can pay for later? You don't get your hair cut and then go, I'll get you on Tuesday. No, you pay before you leave and then you leave a tip. When you sign up for things online, you got to pay before. You got to pay when you sign up, not even when you get there. So for me to ask my clients to at least pay before they leave is not a hard ask. That is a very reasonable ask for a service that was delivered through and through. And when you take a trick riding lesson with me, I'm also providing the horses and the equipment. So friend or not, just pay before you leave. Just pay before you leave. I will follow you in the parking lot and you will not be priority for your service. Just like at the vet, I am huge about paying my vet. Always. I will always pay. And guess what? My vets will always show up. My vets will always show up when I call them, when I text them, because I'm a good customer. There are so many people who don't pay their vets because they'll invoice them at the end of the month and they go, you want to know, like, it's probably, I'm not a vet. So I just imagine that it's so hard to be a vet nowadays. There's not enough. It has like the #1 suicide rate because it's such a stressful job and you're responsible for so many different bodies. Like a human doctor, one body to learn. Vets, so many different bodies with a patient that can't tell you what they're feeling, what's hurting, have to make hard decisions, have to deal with ethics and make go with decisions owners make, even if it's not like ethically what they would do or if there was a better solution. It's a hard job. And then after they save your animal, you're not going to pay them. After they come out of vet school, $500,000 in debt. When there's an emergency, I want to call and I want my vet to arrive. And they do because I pay them. So if you want good trick riding lessons, you pay. You pay at the time of the lesson. Therefore, my schedule is open to those clients first. So you can be gentle. I like to say with clients and with horses, and honestly, like day-to-day interactions, you're a brick wall. You're a brick wall. Brick wall doesn't fight back, but brick wall's a brick wall. Can I pay on Sunday? No, run into the brick wall. Can I pay, in 5 days? No. Can I pay? No, no, no. I'm not gonna fight back, but like it's not moving. It's a brick wall. If I when I work with kids and at camps, especially when I have groups, it's very important that we stay on time, especially if my camp runs with the other camp, because if my kids are going from the flying trapeze to trick riding and then to the beach, if I'm late, I'm gonna offset all the other coaches' schedules. So I get asked that famous question all the time, can I go again? And I say, no, I'm sorry. If I let you go again, I have to let everybody else go again, and therefore we're going to get behind on time. And it's nothing against you. It's about trying to keep the camp on time. Make sure you guys get to your rotation on time. Make sure you guys get picked up by your parents on time. If you want to come back and do more, come take a private lesson. And I'm nice about it, but the answer is no, because it will cause chaos. So you got to be firm in your boundaries, but you can be gentle about it. You can be gentle about your boundaries, but they're there for a reason, and they're there regardless if they're just your client, they're just your student, or they're your best friend who's your client or your student. Your friends who are your clients cheer for you. They root for you. They pay what you're worth. My friends, my friends want me to raise my prices because they know what I'm worth. I know what I'm worth. Those people who are talking about what I charge, it's too much, blah, 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 behind my back, they're not my friends. The people who like your services and who root for you and who are good for you, support you and your prices and your business decisions. Those other people, it's probably just a jealousy thing. It's probably just a whatever thing. And the last point I'm going to get to is be sure to market yourself for who you are. And anyone listening who's not, a trainer or a performer or an equestrian entrepreneur, but you're in the industry, right? So if you're a student, you're working with equestrian entrepreneurs. You're supporting equestrian entrepreneurs. Here's a message for you. Use discernment. There's a lot of people out there calling themselves professionals who are not. What is a professional? A professional is someone who gets paid to do the thing that they do. I mentioned this in the beginning of this episode. So, as a trick rider, I've been paid to trick ride. I'm good enough that people want to pay to see me do my thing. I teach a lot of clinics. I set people up for success. If someone takes 3 clinics with me, they do not leave my clinic thinking they know what they're doing. They might, but they should not. I set you up for success. If you're starting to fall off, I will slow the horse down and I go, oh, okay, maybe we won't trot that trick. Let's go back to a walk. Setting people up for success so they have a good experience and that they're safe is not the same thing as this is so for you. This is so perfect. You're a natural. You can never get hurt. This isn't dangerous. Because I've had people also turn from a clinic where I set them up for success and then turn around and start teaching these things. There's people who teach these things. And I'm not just talking about trick riding, I'm talking about a lot of things that they never did on their own and they could never replicate right now. Like if some people, I haven't really done some of my big tricks in a few years, but if I had to, I could revisit them and help someone through it. And I'm very picky about what tricks I'm teaching. If I can't go do it right now, I'm not going to help train people how to do it. Or I'm going to be completely honest with where I'm at this in this trick, like standing on the saddle. I can do it. I hate it. I'm tall. I'm tall. I'm like the Sears Tower. I like sway in the wind. That's not my favorite trick. So if someone wants to learn that trick, I'm completely honest about where I'm at with the trick, and then ask them if they still want to try it, standing still or at a walk. But there'll be people out there teaching tricks that they cannot do. And the thing about being a professional is that you don't just know how to do it right. You don't just know how to set people up to do it right. You know what happens when shit goes bad. So I've had horses fall on me. I've had tack and equipment break. I speak for safety out of those experiences, not really the successful ones. The unsuccessful ones help create the successful ones. So if you are out trying to learn to trick ride, to vault, to Roman ride, to joust, make sure you're trying to learn it from someone who has performed it and who also has a safety record and who also has a passion for teaching. I'm aware that plenty of performers are not great coaches, but that doesn't mean that coaches can't just go put themselves in a performance once in a while to build a resume, to be like, look, my passion is coaching, but I'm good enough that people want to see me do it and they want to pay to see me do it. Because there's also a revolution of just students becoming coaches and that's it. But who are you? Why should I learn from you? What's your resume? What have you done? Who's to say that you didn't just learn this in your yard incorrectly and now you're just going through and teaching everybody incorrectly? So be honest with where you're at, be honest with what you offer so that, if something ever happens, you can back yourself up. Well, yes, I was explicit about where I am with this trick. I taught them only to go at this pace. The fact that they went home and did it on their own, I can't help that. And those who have ridden with me know that first thing you do at my clinic is you learn how to fall and you take my oath that you're not going to try this at home. I know people do it at home all the time, but at least the parents are like, she told him not to, and now my kid's doing this. And majority of my people respect that, understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not going to hold people back. I have plenty of people coming to me with horses that were working on the groundwork and the training on how to get them safe. They're making barrels, they're buying the proper equipment. I'm not going to hold you back, but I just don't want you to break your neck. So you want to learn from someone with credentials. And if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be somebody with credentials. And that means that the learning never stops. The working never stops, the resume never ends, and therefore you perpetuate that energy of being, credible, being safe, being, clear, and being honest. Okay. Woo, that was a lot. It's been a journey. Let me tell you, from the first time I taught riding lessons in 2008, 2009, to performing in 2011, 2012, doing my first summer camp in 2014. It's 2024. I finished summer camps last week. I have a lot. I have majority of amazing stories, great weekends doing great clinics, and only a very few where I'm like, wow, I had to learn the hard way. But they do happen. They do happen, but those are the ones that shape everything else that I have formulated, and that happens. So I really hope that you guys have found some value in my stories and in my tips for equestrian entrepreneurs. And if you guys have questions, of course, you're welcome to ask me questions. And if you have any other topics that I can cover and talk about from my experiences, I'd love to keep the podcast and keep the conversation going and answer those for you. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks with our next guest. Thank you so much.